as well as perhaps Javelin missiles, which we might mention here. And I think, did you have anything more to say about the
No,
budget?
no, no. This is unbelievable, Will. More money to Ukraine. Can you believe it, by Joe Biden? So, one of the few good decisions that Barack Obama made, Will, was not sending lethal aid to Ukraine. Trump, of course,
Yeah.
undid that good decision. And Biden, more like Trump than Obama, once again, is going to provide Ukraine with an additional $60 million in military aid. And so
Yeah.
these are going to include Javelin missiles, small arms, ammunition, and first aid kits. It's a part of, I think, over $125 million aid package to Ukraine. Some of it will include other things. I know the Biden administration has been intent on giving your tax dollars to every country in the world so they could fight their own climate change problems, apparently, although I doubt that money is going to those places in any of the countries. But, anyways, here, Will, this is particularly provocative and problematic because this is an escalation in a conflict that really, in the wider scale, involves the U.S. and Russia. And, this is playing on the brink of nuclear warfare in a very dangerous situation. And while it would be smart for Biden to not offer the Ukrainians any aid and make it very explicitly clear to the Ukrainians that they will not be joining NATO and they do not have a security guarantee from the U.S., and so they'll have to figure out their own relationship with their neighbors, even if they feel like that's unfair. But rather, for whatever reason, well, the U.S. seems like it has to coddle Ukraine. We decided to give Ukraine aid in response to Germany building the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. So Germany builds a better pipeline for them so they don't have to pay markups on fuel coming from Ukraine. And the U.S. decides that we have to take U.S. and German money and give it to the Ukrainians for that reason. And I have to imagine that part of the reason for this lethal aid, Will, is in an effort for Biden to appease the Ukrainians the same way. When, again, this isn't an American interest. None of us should care at all. We should just be concerned in this case with getting as much of our tax dollars away from that government as possible, and again, having them deal with their own situation with their neighbors. I wasn't sure if you had anything to add on this one. I didn't have a whole lot. It's absolutely outrageous that this happened, and it's worth noting that at the beginning of the Biden administration, he was saying very strong signals of support to the Ukrainian president Zelensky and the Ukrainian government. And in response to that, they were starting a military buildup and making threats like they were going to go and invade the areas that they believe are Ukraine that are in opposition to them. And so that, again, this would have provoked a conflict with Russia had they done it. And, I think Biden needs to be very, very careful about sending any of those signs to Ukraine.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, when you go and look, because Vladimir Zelensky, I believe, just had his first actual in-person meeting at the White House with Biden, and they put out this joint statement. And in that statement, they specifically say that this aid package is to defend against quote unquote Russian aggression. They're still using that line. And in that joint statement, the White House is even bragging about how we've given Ukraine at least 2.5 billion in military aid just since 2014, since the coup d'état that the Obama administration orchestrated there, and that we've already given them 400 million just this year. And who knows what the full amount is? Like, I'm sure there's other stuff they do that's not accounted for in the official tally. But now apparently we're slapping another 60 million on top of all this to fend off the evil Russians. But it's a completely ridiculous idea. Like, if Russia wants to invade Ukraine, there's no amount of Javelin missiles or non-lethal aid or whatever that we could give them to stop it from happening. It's kind of like the Taiwan thing. Like, if China wants to take Taiwan, there's not much we or anyone else can do to stop it. We could launch a full-scale nuclear war with them. We could exchange a few of our own cities, but they'll still take Taiwan in the end. And it's the same kind of thing with Russia. If Russia wants Ukraine, Russia can have Ukraine. So nobody seriously thinks that the U.S., this aid to Ukraine, can help them stand up to the Russians. It is a gigantic boondoggle for arms dealers like Lockheed Martin, who happens to produce the Javelin missiles that we have been selling to them all along. And this also, too, assumes that Russia even wants to take over Ukraine, which I think is completely ridiculous. Like, people may recall that those break-off republics in the Donbass, the Donetsk and Luhansk republics, tried to join the Russian Federation back in 2015 or 2014, and Putin said no way. He said, no, we don't want that headache. So the Russians clearly don't want to, control all of Ukraine. we could get into Crimea. That's a whole other story. But we've explained that issue on the show plenty in the past. That had nothing to do with wanting to control and invade Ukraine, but yet to stop it from becoming a NATO naval base. And so that's what I would say about Russian interests there. It's clear that they don't want to invade Ukraine. But they are interested in keeping it out of NATO.